So famous CNN lead anchor Jake Tapper has recently published a book titled The Original Sin, which covers Joe Biden's cognitive decline, its cover-up, and frames his choice to run again as disastrous. And it really was for the Democratic Party. I mean, it's still beyond me how prideful the Democratic elite have become that they could look themselves in the mirror and deny it for so long. And it took Biden bombing his debate with Trump last summer for these talking heads to actually admit that there was something wrong. Which in my opinion was the beginning of the end for them in the sense that it kind of sealed the election. That and the fact that they continue to gaslight people who were skeptical about voting for Harris, but I digress. Because while I normally have some respect for Jake Tapper for showing at least some integrity to call out his own side for their nefarious behavior, the fact is that Jake himself was part of the mainstream media that covered it up, or at least did not do a good job of scrutinizing his own side, something which Megyn Kelly asked him about when he was on her show.
The criticism has been that you're complaining about a cover-up about Joe Biden's mental acuity that failed, that right-wing pundits saw, the right wing in general saw, that independent media saw and reported on, and that was no mystery even to left-wing and so-called mainstream reporters who were not fooled but chose willful blindness instead of honest reporting, and that you were part of it. How do you respond?
It's a tough and fair question. I would say Alex and I, after Election Day, interviewed more than 200 people, mostly Democratic insiders. They justified to themselves what they had done in terms of misrepresenting how the president was to me and Alex and other reporters, but also just to each other and to the world and to Democrats and to the cabinet, et cetera, by saying that there was this existential threat of Donald Trump. And only Joe Biden could beat Donald Trump, and that justified everything in their minds.
That goes back to the earlier comment I made about these people being prideful because they believe that they could look themselves in the mirror and justify deceiving the public. It's like, do you think your own party is that stupid? I mean, that's how it felt at some point during the election season in 2024, especially when, for example, you had people like Barack Obama being condescending towards some black people who were on the fence on who to vote for. Well, we all know how that turned out. And it points to Jake Tapper just making excuses, but let's continue.
After that existential threat was over, because the election was over and Donald Trump won, one of the things that emerged was that there were two Bidens. One was the fine Biden, serviceable, adequate, and the other one was a non-functioning Biden, and that's the one we saw the night of the debate. And that's the one we saw some clips of here and there. And that non-functioning Biden, the one that lost his train of thought in a significant way, not in the way just that every human loses their train of thought, but in a way that shows that he's having trouble articulating his very views, and the one who forgot the name of close aides, who was not able to come up with George Clooney's name, didn't seem to recognize him, all that sort of thing. That non-functioning Biden was, according to our reporting, showed up as far back as 2015, after the death of Beau, where one top aide said that tragedy, the loss of Beau, was like watching somebody pour water on sand. That was the effect on his psyche.
And that's exactly the effect it's having on your reputation, Jake. Like water being poured onto sand and melting away what little is left of it. Because all it's doing is making you and the people you associate with look terrible. That's just my perception from listening to Jake speak. But when he goes on about there was one side of Biden that was totally fine and another non-functioning Biden, if there is even some part of Biden that's non-functioning, you can't be president. Simply put, you need to almost fully be there. I get maybe take away some minor moments because everyone loses their train of thought here and there, and granted it does get worse with time, and especially since he did lose his son Beau, who was only in his 40s, that is tragic, and regardless of how I may feel about the Biden presidency or whatever, just as a human, I completely empathize. It can definitely take a toll on your mental state, so I don't want to minimize that. But the thing is, Biden himself tried to deny the allegations.
Mr. President, you are the oldest president ever.
Pretty good shape, huh?
Some people ask whether you are fit for the job. And when you hear that, I wonder what you think.
Watch me. Watch me. If you think I don't have the energy level or the mental acuity, then that's one thing. It's another thing of just watch and keep my schedule. I don't, when I sit down with our NATO allies and keep them together, I don't have them saying, wait a minute, how old are you? What did they say? It's a matter of, that old expression, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. But I think it relates to how much energy you have and whether or not the job you're doing is one consistent with what any person of any age would be able to do.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused.
See, besides the fact that you completely botched the phrase "the proof is in the pudding," he talks about having the energy as if he didn't fall asleep during every other important meeting during his presidency. And shame on people like Jill who allowed this stuff to happen. But back to Jake, because if these issues showed up years before his presidency and you can still have clear conscience to put this guy in office, you're more so the problem than anyone. And you notice that Jake's saying these aides were saying all this stuff about Biden, not taking a whole lot of responsibility for his own role, until Megyn jumps in.
I did ask Joe Biden to be transparent about his health records in an interview in 2020. I did ask him about the fact that voters
then he wasn't.
thought that he was not transparent at all. No.
He promised you that he would be transparent about his health records, and then he wasn't. And when you sat with him again,
at all.
including 1 month after the Jackie Walorski thing, you didn't ask him about it. You didn't follow up on the fact that he was falling up the stairs, that he was losing his train of thought regularly, that he was slurring, that he was incomprehensible, that he was getting lost on the White House lawn. You sat right across from him and you asked none of that, notwithstanding the fact that he had promised you he would be fully transparent about his health issues. You know as well as I do that there's a way of, you can say, hey, there's this poll on your age, or you could say, you just forgot that Jackie Walorski was dead. You asked where she was moments after watching a videotape tribute to her. You lowered the flags at the White House after she died. This happened 13 days before you sat with him. There is a way of pressing a man like that on the actual infirmities to bring it home to him and to the audience, and you didn't do it. I mean, you sat with him a couple of times in the course of his presidency, and these issues were not pressed. Well, there was at least that time, and then there was the time at the beginning. And but separate and apart from that, you covered the Biden's presidency. No. Let me just finish my point. You covered the Biden presidency.
I had one interview with him.
Okay, not to nitpick here, but for the record, Jake Tapper didn't just have one interview with Biden, because there was the 2022 exclusive interview, and then there was a 2020 joint interview with Biden and Harris. Again, not to nitpick, but he can't even be honest about that.
But you covered the Biden presidency aggressively throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seemed to be running cover for the president. You didn't seem interested. Well, I mean, we'll start with the Laura Trump issue that you referred. Here it is.
Every time he comes on stage or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You are
to
no
watch somebody on stage search for
this is so amazing. It's so amazing to me
and try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were
stuttering,
mocking his stutter. I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked
is
about
that
a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last
struggling
question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel
Laura
sorry
Trump.
for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it. I'm sure it was from a place of concern. We all believe that. Laura Trump, thank you so much.
Do you want to apologize to Laura Trump now?
I've already apologized to her. I called her months ago.
And what did she say?
I mean, I don't want to disclose the contents of a private conversation, but I thought the conversation went well, and she has said this publicly, so I feel fine sharing it. She said that she would never mock anybody's stutter. But I mean, after we did the research for this book, and I realized how bad his acuity issues were, I called Laura Trump and I said, you were right.
She was totally right. That's the thing, because when I watched that clip, and I'm giving voice to what a lot of people watching the show are feeling, Jake, I feel angry because she was right. And not only did you not allow her to make her comments, but you seemed to try to humiliate her. You had a hostility toward the position, but she was totally right. And then you lectured her on how she was in no position to diagnose cognitive decline, which you guys do at length, including on page 4 of your book. You describe at length his cognitive decline, which is all she tried to do with you. But you had such a visceral reaction to her. And my feeling is that's because you didn't want to hear it.
I'm happy to talk about this. I didn't come here thinking that you weren't going to ask me about this. I'm happy to talk to you about it.
No, I know.
The first time I saw the coverage of Laura Trump's comments, which were interpreted as her mocking Joe Biden's stutter, was in January 2020. I read it in conservative media. I read it in the Daily Mail. And that's where I saw that her comments were being interpreted that way.
Okay, so this dude reads that she allegedly was making fun of Biden and decided to come for her without doing his research. Isn't the job of a reporter to think critically? I mean, this is the type of stuff I live for, because when you just spout off without knowing exactly what you're talking about, people don't respond well when they get the full context. You would think working in media as long as he has, he would understand that.
It got a lot of coverage, and Sully Sullenberger wrote an op-ed in the New York Times criticizing her about this. So that's the context for that, that I was following up. This is also in the context of October 2020, a very intense time. People on the Biden side are saying crazy things about Trump. People on the Trump side are saying crazy things about Biden, including Don Jr. suggesting that Joe Biden is a pedophile.
And whether or not that is true, that's a topic for a different time. But I hate the outrage mob on both the left and the right, and Jake Tapper is admitting to being part of that.
But as I said, her comments have aged well. My comments have aged poorly. I own that. The comments of Joe Biden making gaffes, saying things stupid, tripping, are all important. But as you know, Megyn, Joe Biden has been saying stupid things for decades. Okay?
I get what you're saying, but this minimizes it too, because it was more than saying stupid things. I'm telling you, like over here in my ecosphere, we were covering all of these. It wasn't just falling down. It was getting lost. It was some of the stuff you report in your book. We knew, and we were reporting on the multi-jump cuts in the videos of him, where it was obvious he couldn't get through a 1-minute take. So they had to use those. It was clear to us that he was using teleprompter, and there was some reporting on that at the time, all of which the White House was denying. Now, with the current White House, I have some connections. With the Joe Biden White House, I had none, but you did. You did. You and CNN have White House connections, but there was no effort, none, to get to the bottom of this. And now for you guys to write this book like there was a cover-up, it's like there was a cover-up and there was an attempted cover-up. It could only ever work if you allowed it.
See, this is why I have so much respect for Megyn. She brings the receipts and she doesn't hold back, and rightfully so. She makes people like Jake Tapper look like complete fools, and it's because of people like her that the elitist media is imploding. But guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video as always, and if you appreciated my commentary, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, hopefully I've earned a subscription. Here's some more videos for you to watch in the meantime. Until next time, peace out.